Many people believe that losing weight automatically means improving their health, but it doesn't. There's a type of weight loss which can make you look slimmer without making you healthier. In fact, in some cases, it can even make you worse. My name is Dr. Etuket from Vigorized, and for over a decade, my team and I have helped tens to hundreds of people to sustainably burn fat and build muscle so that they can reverse insulin resistance disorders like type 2 diabetes and hypertension. Today, I want to show you why procedures like liposuction and CoolSculpting may change your appearance but do very little for the disease process that's actually making people sick. Let's start with one simple idea. Imagine every fat cell underneath your skin is like a balloon. Every time insulin levels rise, which is mainly due to eating the wrong type of food, insulin tells that balloon to store more fat and hence increase in size. The more insulin stays elevated, the more fat gets packed into that balloon, and it keeps getting bigger. Now here's the problem. The balloon can only stretch so far. As that fat cell keeps getting bigger, it eventually outgrows its blood supply and no longer receives the oxygen and nutrients it needs to thrive. As a result, the cell gets damaged, inflamed, and eventually starts to die. The rising levels of inflammation are going to cause insulin resistance in the fat cell. And this is where insulin resistance starts before it begins affecting other organs like the muscle cells. As a result of the insulin resistance in the fat cell under the skin, the fat molecules or triglycerides that were stored in it start breaking down into what is called free fatty acids. These free fatty acids gain access to the blood circulation, and now they have to go somewhere. They can't just wander around aimlessly. They end up getting stored in other places. The first being around the intestines, what is called visceral fat. These free fatty acids can also be stored in a variety of organs where they shouldn't ideally be. For example, in the muscle, in the liver, in the pancreas, in the tongue, around your heart, etc. This fat, which gets stored in places where it shouldn't ideally be, is called ectopic fat. Visceral fat and ectopic fat are the ones which are implicated as the cause of insulin resistance. Not the fat under your skin, what is called subcutaneous fat, but the process of insulin resistance started by the subcutaneous fat cells increasing in size, outgrowing their blood supply, getting damaged, inflamed, and then getting insulin resistant. So the summary of all this is that insulin resistance in the body starts by the fat cells beneath your skin increasing in size. If you're finding value in this video, then click the thumbs up icon just below and hit the subscribe button so that YouTube can know that this is valuable content and share it to many more people. Let's help spread the message of good health. All right, back to the video. Let's look at the two procedures I mentioned earlier, liposuction and CoolSculpting. Both processes mainly target the fat cells just underneath the skin, the subcutaneous fat. Liposuction physically removes the fat cells. CoolSculpting, on the other hand, freezes the fat cells until they die. But neither of these procedures removes the visceral fat or the ectopic fat in your liver, in the muscle, in the tongue, pancreas, kidney, around your heart, you name it. This is the fat that is actually driving insulin resistance. One particular study published in the New England Journal of Medicine that looked at metabolic health 10 to 12 weeks after a liposuction procedure showed little or no meaningful improvement in insulin sensitivity, blood sugar control, or other metabolic markers, because removing subcutaneous fat is not the same as treating insulin resistance. Here's something even more interesting. Having more fat cells isn't always bad. In fact, one of the safest ways of your body managing excess calories is by storing fat in new fat cells instead of overfilling the old ones. Smaller fat cells are healthier fat cells. Women before menopause are a very good example of this. Because they have relatively higher levels of estrogen than their male counterparts of the same age and race, they are more likely to store fat by creating new fat cells rather than increasing the size of already existing fat cells like their male counterparts. And that's why premenopausal women generally have a lower risk of insulin resistance disorders than their male counterparts of the same age and race. Further still, some medications for type 2 diabetes actually cause people to store more fat while reducing their insulin resistance. This is possible because they are storing fat by increasing on the number of new fat cells, not increasing on the size of the already existing ones. The drugs which do this belong to the group of drugs called glitazones. For example, pioglitazone and rosiglitazone. So, gaining weight doesn't automatically mean insulin resistance is increasing. Subsequently, losing weight doesn't automatically mean that insulin resistance is reducing. What actually matters is where is the fat being stored and how is it being stored. Something else to consider when it comes to liposuction is that even if the fat loss may be immediate, the maximum amount of fat loss you can expect is only about 5 kilograms. Nothing more than that. The amount of fat loss as a result of CoolSculpting is even less in many of the cases. And the fat loss isn't immediate. It can take several weeks to happen. So, should a person ever consider liposuction or CoolSculpting? Well, if your goal is cosmetic, if you're simply trying to improve on your body shape, that's your personal decision. But if your goal is health, if it's reducing insulin resistance, reducing your chances of getting type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, heart attacks, strokes, chronic kidney disease, etc., these procedures are not treating the underlying problem. They do not address the main root cause, which is chronically elevated levels of insulin, mainly due to eating the wrong type of food. This is why I always tell people you need to be clear about your goals. Are you chasing aesthetic or are you chasing health? Because they're not always the same thing. If your goal is long-term health, then there are no shortcuts. As I always say, if the fix is quick, it won't stick. The real solution isn't merely removing fat cells. It's restoring your body's ability to shrink the existing fat cells naturally by addressing the root causes of insulin resistance. Type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, abnormal levels of cholesterol are all fruits of the same tree of insulin resistance. If you kill the root, you'll kill the fruit. Awesome, that's all I had for you today. Check out this video where I walk you through our 3-step system, the Diabetes Freedom Formula, which has seen tens to hundreds of people lose fat and build muscle sustainably while reversing insulin resistance. Take care, speak soon.